All right, now we're going to read and write to text files instead of databases. Whew. All right, so now that if you haven't got your database one working, scrap it at this point. Drop it, save it, close it, open up a brand new project. So now we're going to write to files and read from files. And it's a time-driven technique for data persistency. All right, so we're going to create a new single view application. We're going to call this one Files, or My File Program, if you want to call it that. So go ahead and open up a new Xcode project, single view application. Click on Next. This one's going to be called, I'm going to just say My Files, because I called the other one My Database. So I'm going to be called My Files, or my File. There we go. It doesn't really matter. I have mine on an iPhone. I'm going to press Next. And I'm going to save it to the desktop. So we're going to move forward. So we have another library to use. So we're going to add the new CocoaTouch class to the project that inherits from NSObject and call it File Operations. So to open File Operations.x, and then we're going to create a following pointer variables inside of it. So let's do this. Let's add the class. So we're going to make a class. We're going to add the class to our project. Why are we going to do this? So you can take this class and use it in other projects. So this is a reusable class component. Shows you how to open and close and read and write to files. So once you've done it once, you can just do it all over again. So save this one. So it's going to be a CocoaTouch class. And then it's gonna inherit from NSObject, and we're gonna call it File Operations. So go ahead and make it. So click on File, New, File, and in the CocoaTouch category, we're gonna select Objective-C class. So instead of using a built-in library, we're gonna create our own class object. And click on Next. This class is going to inherit from NSObject. So I'm going to type in NSObject on the bottom here first, so I don't forget to do that. Otherwise, I don't want it to be a view controller. I want it to be an NSObject. And I'm going to call it File Operations. So this one's going to be called File Operations.
You selected Objective-C class?
I hope I did, but let's go back and make sure I did. In the iOS category, under CocoaTouch, because you want the touch version of it, select Objective-C class. Make sure you're up here on the iOS section, and then click on Next. Make sure you're inheriting from NSObject, and put in File Operations. So I got File Operations, and I'm inheriting from NSObject. All right. Very good. I'm going to click on Next, and I'm just going to save it. And it's going to end up in my class project, it's going to end up in my project up here. It doesn't really matter where it's in my main folder of my project. So it's in a good spot, because then if I go out, for example, if I go out to my disk out here and I take a look for it, here's the folder. It's right out here. What does that mean? I can copy and paste it into other ones real easily too. Make a backup of it, because once I make it, I can reuse it. So now we're going to really see the object orientation reuse kind of features going on here. Okay, so inside of my file operations, I'm going to open up file operations.h, and I'm going to create the following pointer variables. These are my variables. So we could copy and paste and stick it in there, or we could type it. Probably easier to copy and paste it. You've been copying and pasting all afternoon, so why not? So also create the corresponding properties and methods and synthesize the property. Let's just do one thing at a time. Take this code here, and let's go, actually let me go back to Xcode first. Open up file operations.h, and we see file operations.h is already coming from NSObject, and we already have foundation.x, foundation.h in here. So let's just pull underneath here the properties and the method prototypes and paste those in. So we're going to copy the properties. So I'm going to have a property that is standing for a file manager. It's the same thing we used last time to find the directory where we're going to stick this file. a string to represent the home directory, a string to represent the file name, and a string to represent the file path. We're also going to use the document directory. It's actually the same tutorial we just finished, but it's using a file instead of a database. It's actually very similar. We're going to get the path the same way. We're going to write to it the same way, but instead of writing to contacts.db and running SQL on it, we're just going to open up a text file and write stuff to the text file and read stuff from the text file. So it's based upon the same basic concepts. So we're going to get the document directory. We're going to write to a string file, write to file method that we're going to run, and then we're going to read from file. These are the method prototypes that we're going to have. We're going to have one method that's going to read from a file, one that's going to set the file name, one's going to write to a string to a file. So copy these items and stick them in between the @ interface and the @ end inside of your file operations.h file. So let's see, I got some formatting issues going on. I'm going to clean this up a little bit because I'm going to post this underneath the video and I want it to look good. So here we go. All right, and we got one. Looks like we got 1, 2, 3, 4 methods and 4 properties. Okay. Now I'm going to take the properties and I'm going to synthesize them. So I'm going to remember I got file manager, home directory, file path, and file name. So let's see, actually, this is going to be automated for me. It is. We can just copy this line here where it says synthesize file manager, file name, file path, and home directory, and put it at the top of the file operations.m file. So I'm going to copy it. And I'm going to switch over to the file operations.m file, and I'm going to stick it right underneath the @ implementation. So now I have synthesized the properties. So now I have created my setters and getters. So I have my file manager, file name, file path. So now I'm still going to have this little yellow thing because I haven't implemented the method prototypes that I just created a few minutes ago. So next we're going to set the name of the file to be used. This is one of the methods. So because we put them in here manually, these are the method prototypes I was talking about. We have one that says, one method that we're going to implement is going to be called get document directory. Another one is going to be called to write to a string to a file. And we're going to have a read from a file. Then we're going to have a set file name. So we're going to start with this one on the bottom here. It says set file name. And we're going to provide the implementation for this method prototype. So if I switch back over, you're going to see, oh, it's empty. It's because we didn't create them from the GUI. We just made the methods, made the method prototype. So here we can safely just paste in the entire method. So if I take this method that says set file name, copy it, and paste it into the file operation.m file, I see I have a pretty good implementation. I'm going to put a little space here and make sure I put a little space here. There we go, clean it up a little bit. Actually, I can even do this with it. There we go, now it looks pretty clean. So the file name is going to be called mytextfile.txt. We're not going to write this one to this. We're not going to write this one to the SD card. Actually, this is going to be written into the My Documents directory. Same place where we wrote the contacts database. We're going to put the file. So I have the file name set, and I'm going to create. And if you want to change your file name, you can change your file name. I'm just going to leave it on that. Next, we're going to add the code for the get document directory, so you know where the documents folder is. And if you need to create it, if the documents folder doesn't exist. So this is where we're going to be storing the file and its contents. So to get the documents folder, you're going to create a get documents directory method, which is this one. So it's declared in the header file. This is the implementation of that method. So I'm going to copy this one. We're basically putting in the method implementations of those 4 methods. So we separated everything out into these 4 methods, so you can just call the methods and we'll see it come together in the view controller, and then you'll see what I'm talking about in terms of reusability. It's pretty easy to reuse it. So I'm going to clean this one up a little bit here too. I'll copy and paste here. So this is going to set the file manager to a new instance called the default manager. So and it's of object type NS file manager. And the home directory, we're just going to run the method to get the NS home directory using a string by appending a path component documents. So this is actually one, but it word wrapped, so I just put a space in there. It word wrapped on 2 different lines. And then return the home directory. So get the documents directory just returns our home directory. So your emulator is now going to have 2 files in it. It's going to have this one here that we created, my textfile.txt. It's also going to have contacts.database unless you've reset the content, and I'll show you how to do that momentarily. So, alright, so first we're going to set the file manager object to default manager. And next we're going to set the home directory, which is in the document subfolder. And then append the app directory that will get the NS home directory method. So now we're going to create the writing to files method. So we created the file, we created the directory where the file is located, and now we're going to have to read and write it. So here's the one for writing it. So writing a file is easy. We're going to use the NS file manager to create the file. So we need to know the name of the file and to use and the path, where to put it. So the path we've already gotten through the get document directory method that we just created. So to get the file name, we need to create a method called setFileName, which we have a prototype for already. And that's going to return the file name as a string. So you'll have to be used as a accessor property. Accessor modifier. We got it automatically with property and synthesize. So the write to string file is going to take a mutable string. It's going to take a string that we're going to write to the file. We're going to take a string that we're going to put into a text box, and we're going to write it to the file. So we're going to set the path. We're going to set an NSError object to record any errors we get, because this file I/O, you're going to get errors sometimes. You go to open the file, file's not there, file's full, file's corrupted, something happens. So we get the file path. And then we're going to get check for it with a Boolean OK, write to file, and see if it comes back with an error or if it comes back with OK as a completed status. If not OK, we're going to write to the NS log that we had an error writing to the file. And then we're going to close the file path so we don't leave everything open. And we're going to localize failure reason and we're going to close it. So the method starts, and you can read through this on your own. I don't necessarily have to read it to you, but it starts by finding the file path, and then it sets get document directory. It runs that method to get the path itself, appends the path component with the documents or whatever subdirectory you were using. I think it is called documents. And then converts the text to write parameter into the write to string file method. So it runs the write to string file method. And then it pretty much just takes the text and writes it to the file by using the write. Text to write, using a write to file path name. And you're wondering, where did this come into place? Automatically given for us in the SDK. So it's no biggie. No libraries to import or anything. It's just a method that we can run on a text file, write to file, just like conversion actually. So go ahead and copy this one and stick it in. Take the whole method and stick it in because the method doesn't exist. It's one of those 4 that we had the prototypes for. And eventually this little yellow thing will go away once we fill in the rest of the message bodies. So this one looks pretty good. I don't think I have to. No, don't have to change anything around with it. Looks like it actually pasted okay. So we'll leave that one alone. Now we have to read from the file. So we've written to the file. We've found where to put the file. We've named the file. We wrote to the file. Now we have to read to the file. Read from the file. So the read from the file is the exact opposite. It's also going to use NSError as an object. And it's going to open the file using the path name of the directory folder. Get document directory. Take the file content and allocate a string first, and then take initialize the string with the contents of the file. So take the whole file, which is a text file, and load it into a string, an NS string. If there's a problem with the text in the file, then put up an alert box, and it's going to say unable to get text from file. So instead of printing to the NS log, it's going to print out a little alert box. It's going to tell you it's got a problem with it. And then you're going to close the alert box. And we're not writing anything to the NSLog, which is kind of interesting. We probably could put a line in here to write to the NSLog. If we do that, then we can troubleshoot what we're programming. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this code and stick it in the view controller. This is the last of the methods, and fix the formatting a little bit, make it look a little cleaner. Looks pretty good. We're looking good with this. So now we notice that the little warning thing went away because we've implemented all the methods now. So we're pretty much done with the file operations file. That's the code you can reuse over and over again. Anytime you want to set a file name, get a directory path, open a file, close a file, write a file, that'll do it all for you. And you'll see how the methods work in the view controller pretty soon here. So finally, we're going to build the UI. The UI, luckily for you, is pretty simple. This one just says write something. It looks like this. So open up the storyboard, add 2 labels, a text field, and 2 buttons. We got a save button and a read button. So I'm going to go ahead and make that little UI. Let's see. I'm going to change a few things about it. Let's just take a look here. And change the background, make it green, because mine are always green. Let's see. You guys are going to be tired of looking at green soon. There you go. Make it a darker shade of green. Although this one's a light green. So let's see, I'm going to put a label out here. It's going to be a fabulous writing program. Now make this font a little bit bigger. Oops. See, now it's quiet. Only the serious people are left. The ones that were here for attendance purposes have left already.
I have to go.
Oh no, I'm not. I mean, you're not even in the classes. You're exempt from that comment. But the ones that just show up for attendance, they make so much noise in the back of the room. It's ridiculous. All right. So we put a text box here. So this is where we're going to write, and then we're going to, when we save it, and then we're going to load it in the window underneath it. And because we could save a long string, we can load a long string. I could have put a text box in both of the areas. One's going to be a text field. That's a big old label. I'm sorry, that's a big old label down here. It's not a text field, it's a label. So let's see, let's put the text field up here. Text field. And I'm just going to put here writing program. I don't like the way that, oops. Okay, there we go. And then a save button. Well, let's put another label down here. Label. So the way you get the label to look like that is you can put down here on the label multiple lines on the label. Where it says lines are 1, I can put like 5 lines, 6 lines on the label. And then that's how I get the label to look like that. Or I could change the background on the label. Let's see. Colors the black ink. Plain label. Attribute labeled. Highlighted. And we'll just put it back on plain. We'll just leave the label alone. Okay, so I'm going to have 2 buttons. One says save and read. So save. Oops, button. Actually, I'm going to put my 2 buttons up in the top here. Save. And then I'll put the other button here. And I'll just put read. Read. And I'll put it underneath. Yeah, I'll put it up here. Make it more interesting. So I moved mine around a little bit. I got to save and I got to read. And those are the buttons. So let's take a look. Let's see if I'm missing anything. Save, a read, a label, and a text box. So I'm looking pretty good. All right. Yeah?
Did you change anything in code?
Which code?
Which you we put it in a file operations.m.
I haven't changed anything. I just cut and pasted it from the from the PDF file. Yes.
Because I'm getting an error that use of undeclared identifier read from file.
Did you put the method prototypes inside of the viewController.h file? Hold on one second. Let me take a look. Or paste it again. There's probably a typo in there. Okay, so we have our interface created. Now what we're going to do is build the functionality for the items. So we're going to open up viewController.h and we're going to import the file operations file. So go ahead.
It's working.
Okay, good. Very good. I'm going to close this file here. I'm going to open up viewController.h. And at the top of the viewController.h file, the first thing I'm going to do is paste in here the file operations.h file. So next time you want to do this, you take these two files from their project. I would just save them somewhere. Maybe if you have a directory of utilities, load them into your project, and then just include the file operations.h. And then you have all these file operations that you can use in your next project. We're going to wire the IB outlet button for the label display to display. It's an outlet, so it's going to turn into a property. And we're going to wire the connection for the text field to message. So let's go ahead and make those two properties. So I'm going to click on my storyboard, close the side piece, click on my tuxedo, change to my viewController.h file. And so I'm going to take this guy here. This is the text field is the message. So this is going to be called message. So I'm going to control drag it here and call it message. And then press connect. And then underneath it, I'm going to take the label and it was called display. So I'm going to control drag this one over here, call it display. Now that I have it over here, I'm actually going to get rid of the label. There we go. So I can't see it anymore, but it's dragged. It's connected, so I don't have to worry about seeing it anymore. Okay, so now we're going to have the IB action of the buttons. So we have the save button and we have the read button. So your finished code looks like this. It should be a UI label that's display and a UI text field that's a message. I have a UI text field that's a message and a UI label that says display. So now I'm going to take the IB action of save and take the touchdown event. It's about right here. It looks like a touchdown event. I'm going to drag it over here. What did it want me to call it? Save and read. Save and read. How that is easy. So I'm going to call it save. And I'm going to change the ID to UI button. And then I'm going to have read as my other button. So I'm going to right mouse click on read. Take the touchdown event and drag it over and call this one read. And change the ID to UI button. Press connect. So now I have two IB actions for the two buttons. Now we're going to add the implementation. Yeah? Okay, let me pause for a second. Alright, so we got the display, we got the message. Those are the text field and the label. We got the save button, we got the read button. Now we're going to go over to the viewController.m file. viewController.m. Now we're going to have two properties. We have two properties. We have the message and the display we have to synthesize. So underneath where it says at implementation, we're going to add our synthesize line. So synthesize message, comma, display. And then put a semicolon at the end. So if you called your message button message, if you called this message and this display, you're synthesizing these two items. We good? Alright, perfect. See, some of us are like way ahead of schedule, some of us are like, wow. If you're finding it hard to keep up, I'd practice a little bit at home so you get more familiar with the interface, because some people are still struggling with the interface. So now we're going to add the implementation for the save button and for the read button, and now you're going to see why we did this file operations. Because we can take file operations, that's our object that we created, files, and this is going to be equal to a new file operations, alloc and init. This is an Objective-C how we would create a new instance of an object. So we allocate and when we initialize, we create a new instance of this object that we're going to reuse in everything that we're going to do files with. And in files, this is the object. Run this method, write to string file. What are we going to write? Self.message.text. Mutable copy. You're like, mutable copy? We have to take a mutable copy, a changeable copy of the text. So this object we're sending is a string. The mutable copy is compatible with the data stream that we're going to be able to use to a write to string file. It's just a copy of this. This is a property, by the way. We can't actually take the text as a property. It doesn't come out as a string. It comes out as a property value. So our mutable copy makes a copy that we can use, if that makes any sense, from the property. Because this is a property that we're taking. This is the text that's going to be in that message box. So, yeah?
Is it something like casting the concept of the use?
Yes, it's very similar to casting, except for this is actually taking and creating a copy of the text. But it's creating it as text, which is string compatible. This isn't this is not compatible to a string and used in this context. So this creates a string out of it. So take that with a grain of salt. So these are the 2 lines of code. The whole thing that's going to do our save. So take and go into the save method that's down here on the bottom and paste those 2 lines of code in there. And we paste the 2 lines of code in here and we have pretty good. We're looking pretty good. And I could probably fix the formatting a little bit. Actually, formatting looks good. Actually, it's just word wrapped a little bit. And the next one we're going to do is the read. Going to run 2 more methods. So we're going to again create another instance of the object, and this one's going to be called read file. And we're going to set the self.display.text is going to be equal to read file, which is our file operations object, and the method read from file. So this is a method that we run on this object instance. This object instance is declared right here with a regular old object instance. So maybe at this point you're starting to see how Objective-C as a programming language sort of works if you haven't taken the Objective-C course yet. So paste this one in this one method here for the read button. So now we have our read button and we have our save button. And lo and behold, we've got that little done on exit issue again. So we know how to do that one, right? If we do this enough, by osmosis, you'll figure it out, right? So change this back to the viewcontroller.h. We're going to wire the did end on exit because we want the keyboard to go away. So bring back your properties on the side. In the keyboard, right mouse click. Wire the did end on exit to the viewcontroller.h and call this one, I don't know, finished. This is what we called it the last tutorial. So finished is good, or done works. It's a UI text field, or you can leave it on ID. Press connect. Click on the text box, go over here to the right, change the return key to done. So you change the return key to done on the text field. You make the did end on exit action, IB action. And then the last thing you do is over on the viewcontroller.m, we add in the sender, resign, first responder. It's always the same code all over again. So down here on the bottom where it says finished, we say sender, resign, first responder. Gets rid of our nasty little keyboard. It gets in the way. Why they didn't put that in automatically, I don't know. But we actually have a finished app, believe it or not. So if we run it, let's see what happens when we run it. Crash, bang, problems. See, mine always builds successfully. You guys are all killing me around. How come every time she does it, it works? When I do it, it doesn't work. Alright, let's write something to the file. This is a complaint message about my code not working. But the teacher's code always works. Teacher's code always works. Jeez. Okay, that's enough. Save it. Well, save it. Oh, let's go end. Save it. Maybe we should have had something happen on the save, like maybe a status, because I don't know if it's saved. But let's read it. Oh, it's saved. So I could probably fix this a little bit, you know, on the save. Let's say, for example, here, let's just say, I'm just write something else in here. I probably could have made this text line a 2 or 3 line kind of text field. Oh, said one little thing here. Let's just put hello world in here. Hello world, because hello world's in everything. Save. Save. Okay, read. Hello world. We're overwriting. So we took the text and we wrote the file, because we're actually just creating a new file with it. So primitive, but it's a start. So you could take, and we have another tutorial coming up later on that takes the file operations to another level. Makes it so we can append to the file. We'll add some more methods to it, essentially. We'll add some stuff to append to it, some stuff to maybe make multiple files with multiple file names and other things to it. So you can sort of hopefully get a feeling for how the file I/O works. Another great way, because if you close this now and you go back into the emulator, the stuff is still there because the file is still there. So if I come back and I say, well, let's see, let me just read. There's hello world, came back from nowhere, because the file's in there. So most people at this point going, well, if you don't like it, go over here to reset contents and settings, and then you can reset the emulator. If you reset the emulator, it clears it out. It'll also bomb your program if it's currently running. And then, you know, depending upon what you can do, you could probably put a file manager. Linda file is actually not a bad one. Actually, that works on Android. I'm going back to Android right now. You could put a file manager on here and see the file. If you hooked up, perhaps in a, you know, hooked up your iPhone to a computer, were able to get at the contents in the documents folder, you'd see the file in there as well. So there's a text file that's on there. I'm not going to leave too much on your real phone. You don't have any connection yet because I haven't shown you how to connect it, so you don't have any garbage on your real phone yet. So stuff like that, you'll end up having to clean up your real phone with databases and files and stuff that you've played around with. So, did we all get it to work? I know some of us probably didn't. Not to worry, I will upload this one. So you can take a look at this one and copy the code. I'll put this in the EMS in a few minutes, and I'll also put it underneath the video when I upload the video. So you'll be able to see how the file I/O works if yours didn't work. So I'm going to end this one, and it actually ends our class for today.